Welcome to Get Rest with Knowledge lesson on provisioning an Oracle Autonomous Database. My name is Rohit. Let's get started. In this session, we are going to take a look at provisioning an autonomous database serverless service. So the Oracle Cloud automates the process of provisioning an autonomous database, and it automatically provisions for you a highly scalable, a highly secure, and a highly available database simply out of the box. Provisioning the database involves very few steps, but it's important to understand the components underneath that are being provisioned. For example, in the background, a Database 19c pluggable database is being added to a container database that's part of your cloud infrastructure. When you provisioned an autonomous database serverless service, you are actually provisioning a database on a private software-defined network that you do not have to recreate, and you're provisioning a fully encrypted database. A database that's running on a scalable RAC cluster that's also running on top of Exadata. And processes such as backing up is already pre-configured for you. So there are no additional steps to go ahead and set up your backups. You simply choose the number of ECPUs that you need for your database, and then you choose the size and increments of terabytes. So let's take a look. When you log into your cloud console on the main landing pad, you'll see that there's a tile there to automatically provision either a data warehouse or a transaction processing database. Or you can navigate by clicking the hamburger menu in the top left-hand corner of the screen. After clicking the hamburger menu, click Oracle Database. The various autonomous databases that are available to you appear. In our case, we can click either Autonomous Data Warehouse or Autonomous Transaction Processing. And it will bring us to a screen where we can create a new autonomous database or provision an autonomous database. It will allow us to see existing autonomous databases that we've already created. So when we get to this screen, you'll see the first thing there is a button that says Create Autonomous Database. On the left side of the screen, you'll see that our compartment is listed. We could choose to change compartments if we wish to see any services that we've created in a different compartment. We can also see the workload type. This is where we would see either data warehouse autonomous database or transaction processing or autonomous JSON database and so on. And below that, we can filter the databases that are listed for us. In our case, we don't have any databases listed, so we are not going to do anything there. However, if we had a large number of databases provisioned, we could filter up to 20 different metrics to filter out our databases that are being listed. So we could see databases that are available, databases that have stopped, databases that are being backed up. We could filter only those databases. In this case, we've just got it listed as any type. So if we click that button to click Create an Autonomous Database, that will go ahead and start the provisioning process. The first things we'll see on the screen is the compartment in which we are going to provision our database, and it will allow us to change our compartment if we wish to put our autonomous database in a different location. It will also let us set the display name. So this is a simple name that we can recognize in that we may choose to name our autonomous database service. We could set this to something that maps to our application. In addition to that, we see our database name listed. And our database name is a little bit more unique. It's provided as a default out of the box, but there's nothing preventing you from setting that to be the same as your display name. Once we've entered those values and we scroll down, we'll see we can choose the workload type. We could use data warehouse, transaction processing, and autonomous JSON, an Apex database, and so on. In this case, we're just going to choose transaction processing. And then we're choosing serverless. And then we can choose the database version 19c in this case. And we can choose the number of ECPUs and storage size in terabytes. You'll notice that autoscaling is already pre-checked. The checkbox has a check mark in it, so autoscaling will be enabled by default. In the case of an always free account, that would not be pre-enabled, and that is something you would have to look at changing yourself. Now, as we scroll down, your data is automatically backed up. Specify the backup retention policy. We then provide the password, an Oracle secure password for our admin account, which is the account to manage the instance that we will be creating. And then we choose our network type. We can choose a publicly routable IP address, which is secure access from everywhere, or we could choose to provision an autonomous database on a private subnet somewhere. And we could choose that in either one of these options. This is not fixed. If you wish to change this later, you can always relocate your autonomous database to a different resource and compartment that could be mapped to have a private network to deploy your autonomous database. So changing this is not a problem after the fact. Also, you'll see that we can configure access control rules. And this is where we may choose to have a publicly routable access from anywhere setting for our autonomous database. But we want to restrict the IP addresses that are allowed to access it that are coming in to access our autonomous database. Now, this setting can also be changed after the fact if you wish to add or remove IP addresses or CIDR routes and so on from accessing your autonomous database. Finally, you'll see that there's an option to choose the licensing type. If you are bringing a license from on-premise and applying it to your cloud footprint, you could choose the BYOL license model, or you could choose license included, which is where you would pay for the services as they're being consumed. Once we've got all of that set up, we simply click Create Autonomous Database. Now, at this point, you will be taken back to the Autonomous Database Details page. And the database will appear in a provisioning state. Once the database has been provisioned, it's a couple of minutes later, we'll see that the database is listed in an available state. And at this point, the database is provisioned and running and open and ready to be connected to and accessed by us. So to wrap things up, you have seen that provisioning an autonomous database is extremely fast and very, very easy. There is no need to specify any table spaces to specify any file system requirements or operating system requirements or initialization parameters and so on. It was a very simple process to follow. And in doing so, we've created a self-contained, self-secure, self-managing, scalable autonomous database that we are ready to connect to and load our data. Thanks for watching.